I just wanted to extend a warm welcome to all of you. My name is Akemi Chan Imai, and I'm the program manager at Oakland Asian Cultural Center. I'm very excited to host this creative writing workshop. We have some amazing partners. Thank you to Shizue Seigel from Right Now at SFA, Professor Harvey Dong from Berkeley's Asian American Asian Diaspora Studies, and also bringing representation from Eastwind Books of Berkeley. And we're also excited to have support from the UC Berkeley Public Service Center. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a packed program, so I want to get through my piece as quickly as possible so that we can really enjoy our time together. We will have a number of short presentations for speakers, followed by a writing exercise and sharing, where we want to involve all of you, and then finish up with a Q&A at the end. And later on in the program, we're going to encourage you to share your writings from the writing exercise portion. And Shizue will elaborate more on that later on with some instructions. But first, I wanted to invite Harvey, if you have a couple of words to share from your end.
Sure, yeah. Well, first I just want to welcome the panelists. Shizue I knew for quite a while, Tureeda Mikell, Ravi Chandra, and also welcome Kalechi Ubozo. I myself have been teaching the community course for about 20 years, which is a very long time. So I'm kind of a relic at the UC Berkeley Asian American Studies program here. And today I do see quite a few number of students from my summer class, which is an online class, so it's not a whole lot of opportunity to meet. So this is a good way for interaction between myself, students, and community people. The topic, mental health and multiracial solidarity, is more important today than ever. Just past few weeks, we've been barraged with all kinds of reports about incidents of racism ranging from violence to hate speech. Young children are being forced to listen to a lot of racist rants and by racist individuals. And I can't help but to think of a July 4th incident at Mount Tam, where a white woman told an Asian family, a father, the mom, a 6-year-old son, and an 11-year-old daughter, that they should not be in this country. The dad was expecting to someday educate his daughter about the realities of discrimination and racism, but he didn't expect it to happen so soon. It's important for us to use our voice to let the world know that these things happen. But more important, it's important to discuss and share this on a multiracial setting. So we do have a very good, fantastic opportunity for us to share our concerns about the present moment. Okay, so I can't wait to see what happens today. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. Now I want to turn it over to Rachel Lee, also from OACC. If you can just introduce yourself and share a couple words.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel. I'm the programs assistant at OACC. Let's see. I will be taking care of like the smaller technical things today. Let's see. So we have a chat box that will be active the whole time. Please use it to ask questions, make comments. If there's anything that the speakers say that really stand out to you, you can repeat it. Just be like, yeah, me too, same. Or let's see. Then let's talk about speaker to gallery view. If you are on a PC, then in the top right corner of the video menu, there will be 2 buttons, one for full screen and one for speaker view or gallery view. So you can click that to toggle between the options. If you are on a mobile phone, then you can swipe to the left, towards the left, to see more people's video screens. We will be recording this session So if you are uncomfortable with having your video being recorded, you can turn off your video. Then we're also going to be putting out a really short 6-question poll. So please take a minute to answer that when I activate the poll in a second. All right. Thank you, Kemi. That's all.
Thanks, Rachel.
What I would love is I would love to see as many of you as feel comfortable showing your faces and your messy rooms. And as you can see, my room is probably messier than yours. So, you know, we're living in this weird place right now where we're isolated from each other, and screens are one of the ways that we're having to interact with each other. And, you know, it's really useful to the audience and also to the presenters to be able to see faces and to interact with each other as human beings. I really think that this sort of ties in with the whole thing of, you know, why is our society so dysfunctional right now, and why is racism playing such a big part is the tendency to try to put labels on people and force them to conform to somebody else's needs. And we need to claim who we are. And that's one of the purposes of having this workshop today. So I'm Shizue Seigel, and I want to thank Akemi and Rachel and the Oakland Asian Cultural Center, and Harvey and UC Berkeley for making this possible. And I want to thank our guests, poet and story medicine woman Tureeda Mikell, psychiatrist and writer Ravi Chandra, MD, and mental health advocate Kalechi Ubozo. You'll be hearing from them a little bit later. And I want to thank all of you in the audience for being here in the second hour. I hope to be able to hear from all of you. As I said, you know, society is a two-way street. It's a two-way street. You know, just because the establishment, whatever you want to call it, tries to put us all in boxes and tries to disempower us, clearly it's not working. It's not working for them. It's not working for us. And clearly they don't know what they're doing. So it's going to be up to us to figure out who we are, what we want, what we think is right, and start acting on it. You know? And we're not going to change things overnight, but we have to start. So, mental health, creativity, and racism. That's a lot to think about. And I hope that this is just the beginning of a continuing conversation, either here at OACC or through my organization right now, SFA. We're in the middle of overwhelming change. The ground under our feet is shifting every day. As the pandemic forces us further into isolation, we need new ways to stay connected for our own mental health and for the health of our nation. People of color must emerge from the shadows of the anonymous other. We must expand the narrative of what it means to be American by claiming ourselves, our histories, our values. And writing is one tool for processing. You know, sometimes when we talk, we may not consider what we're saying. Sometimes writing is a way to really sift through our thoughts and go deeper, and then, you know, edit and think about what we're saying before we're comfortable to share all the nuances, all of the complexities of what we're feeling. It's not going to be easy because many of us have been silenced for years, decades, generations. Until George Floyd's murder, many of us avoided the topic of race. It's a hard thing to talk about. But now we can clearly see how deeply woven it is into the American psyche. Racism makes us all crazy. It disrupts our basic human urge to love and be loved, to trust, to work together towards common goals. It causes us to question our own perceptions. Was that a microaggression, or am I just being oversensitive? Did I get passed over because of race or because I'm not good enough? What can I do to interrupt wrong when I see it? We can only heal by sharing how racism is influencing the way we feel about ourselves and others every day. The most visible targets of racism, the Black, Brown, and Indigenous, live with a visceral fear of not surviving each day. That awareness gave 17-year-old Darnella Frazier the courage to keep her cell phone on for 8 minutes and 46 seconds in the face of a lot of intimidation. People of color are 60% of the Bay Area's population, and yet many of us are still invisible. They think of us as the bus drivers, the bus boys, the cooks, the clerks. We're not seen as people. If we want racism to go away, we need to do the same as Darnella. We need to stop letting others speak for us and define us. Each of us has a voice and a story to tell and something to do that expands the public sense of what it's like to live in America. So, I want your stories of the cost of being targeted, the cost of denial, of implicit bias, of standing on the sidelines. I'm Japanese American. My family lost everything after Pearl Harbor was attacked and they were sent to American concentration camps. I'm passionate about standing up for each other because nobody stood up for us. My grandparents could not save themselves by by building a tight-knit Japanese immigrant community. My parents could not save themselves by joining the model minority. They barely survived only because of their strong Buddhist values and their communities, but they paid a really high price. Ideas are important, but the stories behind them are what really stick. So I'm going to finish my portion with a couple of memoir vignettes and a poem. Baltimore, 1952. When I was 6, I was walking home from school one day. Suddenly I heard, ah, brrr, it's a Jap plane going in at 12 o'clock. Roger, I'm on your wing. 2 big boys barreled down at me, arms outstretched like airplane wings. I was sure they were going to knock me over, but they V'd their arms ahead of them and whizzed past on either side, so close I could feel the air rush by. They imitated the scream of a plane spiraling into the sky. Boom! Gotcha, yellow bastard. They erupted in mocking laughter. I'd been so scared I peed my pants. My ears burned in shame and rage as I walked home in the springtime sun. When I finally got up the nerve to tell Dad, he said, "You don't know their side of the story. Maybe they lost a brother in World War II or in Korea. But why do they have to be so mean to me? I didn't do anything." People do strange things. Better get used to it. He picked up his newspaper. The conversation was over. You can clap, you can wave your hands if you want. That always makes us feel better. All right, San Francisco, 1960. During the civil rights era, Dad and I obsessed over the news. He'd come home from work in the Presidio, peel off his uniform, flip on the TV. He chain smoked camels and folded origami while I did my homework. Together, we watched protesters being beaten and attacked by dogs and fire hoses and cattle prods. I wondered if Dad had seen that same hate during World War II, but he didn't talk about it. As we watched protesters being dragged by the hair at a lunch counter sit-in, Dad said, Blacks should be more patient. Like the model minority, I wanted to ask, but Dad would have said, "Who do you think you are? You don't know what you're talking about." And what did I know? I was a 14-year-old kid, born after the camps closed. Dad was serving in military intelligence to prove that Japanese Americans were loyal. His buddies had earned medals in 442nd to prove their courage. Never again, they said. But did they extend that idea to all people or just people like them? I was on fire. I didn't about equality for everyone, but I didn't want to get my dad in trouble by getting arrested at a demonstration. So what could I do to support equal rights? On the way to school in the morning, the front of the bus was always clogged with blonde preppies and parochial schoolgirls, and I had to struggle past them to the middle of the bus. Sometimes I was lucky and I could get a seat on the long bench in the middle of the bus. One day, a large round girl planted herself in front of me. Her skin gleamed with oil. Her unprocessed pigtails waved as she hollered, "Girl, get up off your ass and give me that seat." She towered over me. And I flipped through thoughts as fast as a cop in a potentially dangerous situation. If I gave her my seat, I'd be tagged as an easy mark. If I showed outrage, I might make her mad. How could I stand up for my wimpy Asian American rights without making her feel bad? I looked up at her. She looked like she got teased for being fat. She looked like she worked out her frustrations on the volleyball court. She looked like her mom had already yelled at her that morning. My mom yelled at me too. I smiled up at her, keeping any trace of my dad's self-righteousness out of my voice. "Well, I was here first, but I can hold your books." I waved at her armload of binders, peaches, and textbooks. The girl jumped back as if she'd been stung by a bee. I pointed to my lap. "Just put your books on top of mine." She rolled her eyes and shoved her way further back in the bus. "Did you hear that? Girl must be crazy." I never saw the girl again, but I never gave up hope that we could one day be friends. All right, this is the last one. Sheer luck. Swerving suavely through life, gyroscope spinning true, inner momentum never disrupted, sliding along on greased wheels, quarters jingling in your pockets, winning every coin toss. You can afford to be flip. Blank eyes, milky innocence, a careless toss of smooth flowing hair. Some people are just golden. Lucky, I guess. There was a time when I worried that my young son would end up dead, drunk, or in jail. He had rocks in his brain, broken glass in his heart. The alphabet did flips across the page, and girls who didn't think Asian Americans date-worthy confided in him endlessly about their jut-jawed crushes. The day the cops caught my son crouching behind a bush, smoking pot with his pudgy white friend, pockets loaded with pen knives and a sharpened screwdriver, they could have sent them to juvie on a conveyor belt to prison. But smoking while Asian and carrying weapons while wussy were not punishable offenses. They were the wrong color and the wrong class for involuntary servitude. So the cops laughed and sent them and brought them home to their mamas. Just lucky, I guess. The CHP smiled when I said I was speeding towards my ex-in-laws latkes one Sunday morning because my new to me Mazda purred so quietly that the engine noise didn't signal that I'd edged over 80. I didn't even get a ticket. Just lucky, I guess. Not like my black sister friend stopped for a broken taillight in her dream machine, a new to her BMW convertible, cherry red with a slightly frayed top. The cops didn't like her attitude, threw her upside the car, tossed her in jail, impounded the vehicle. To ransom it, I loaned her $400 she didn't have. She couldn't hold a job for long. She asked too many questions. Her gaze was too direct, her body too ripe. The last words she heard before she died were a joke about her black butt from a well-meaning white male who called himself a friend. He was proud that he got her to laugh and laugh and laugh. What else could she do? Just lucky, I guess. What you see is who you are. So that's it for me. And now the amazing Tureeda Mikell. Tureeda? Hey. Let's see, are you muted?
As soon as you said that, interesting things happened to the computer, and it took everything out. I had to get back in. Fascinating. All right. Okay. I'm back. Yes. Right. Now, I don't know what this is. Okay. Host has spotlighted you. Okay. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for coming, and hopefully my words will help enlighten or give strength or help heal all of us in times we're witnessing today and have witnessed as we've grown up in a society that does not recognize us. So we're witnessing a hegemony that focuses a dominance to think in a certain way that everyone is really going through. So I remember Shizue sending something about, you know, how did you uncolonize yourself, and I feel we're all going through that. That's a constant thing. We're speaking English. English is not our first language. So I'd like to begin with a couple of quotes by Dr. Abdul Muhammad, who was East Indian Dravidian professor, head of UC Berkeley's English department in 1988, who said, "It doesn't matter who you are as long as you think in English. It provides efficiency, unity, and cost." So that's a very profound thing for me, because at that time I was involved in a workshop called Etymology, Its Roots and Effect in language affecting Black culture. Then there's a quote from James Baldwin, and many youth today are really listening to James Baldwin. There's so much I have around him, but his 1963 letter to teachers that was published in the Saturday Evening Post, first page, bottom paragraph. And this letter was given to my godmother that read, "Any Negro who undergoes the education system in this country runs the risk of becoming schizophrenic." Now, no doubt this affects us all just by the behaviors we are witnessing today. So decolonizing the self is an ongoing process due to the colonized language that we speak. And the educational systems we're to value, graded and agreed, that impacts the environment that does not agree with the intelligence we're told is relevant to our survival. Our environment is suffering. How do we decolonize that? Health is failing. How do we decolonize that? GMO foods. Don't get me started with that. So growing up dyslexic, seeing patterns and spirits between the ages of 3 and 8, parents instinctively knew to push me into the arts, piano, dance, painting, loved drawing and painting. Grandfather, passing as white in Louisiana, tells me of lynching when I am 8 years old. Mother dies when I'm 10. And she was the first of many experiences witnessing a spirit walk without a body. So she came through a wall of my bedroom, kissed my forehead to tell me goodbye. The experience was so real that I got up believing she had come home. Learned she had died in the hospital. Father went through a severe depression, and 2 younger sisters and I were taken to foster care. I encountered rape, death threats, lie detector test, Bell's palsy, facial paralysis, obesity, alopecia, bedwetting between the ages of 11 and 17. Foster care abuse. During that time, I'd be labeled many things, as well as hypersensitive. I called it hypervigilant. Was given a last check at 18 years old after being asked to leave foster home on my own. Younger sisters are still in foster care because one is 5 years younger than I, and the other is 7 years younger. We have lost contact. The state makes no connection. Finished high school on my own due to the abuse of the foster care parent who felt was her duty to spend the money she got from the state. There were 14 children under me, I being the oldest. She had state working mothers and a stable of women, she called it, owned by a pimp. So all of this is in San Francisco. So I found a studio. Martin Luther King is murdered the day before my birthday. Everything around me is in chaos. I go to Laney after I finish the high school program to get my GED. I major in science, minor in music. Someone tells me about a nursing program. I apply and psyched my mind for the worst case scenario. Got in, graduated, later graduated from Laney, witnessed first hemodialysis machine arrive at Providence Hospital, now a multi-billion-dollar industry, primarily serves Black and brown people. Chronic diseases and drug addictions proliferate in our communities. One day I felt a patient's medication on my body, learned that I was an empath, an intuitive. I learned as soon as possible if we don't take better care of ourselves, many health corporations will. Became a fierce advocate for health, joined and volunteered my nursing skills at the Black Panther Clinic, continued work in many hospitals, worked as a phlebotomist in a plasma lab, and worked as a lab tech in a psychiatric facility. Worked with Dr. James Greer, graduate of BPI at Berkeley, who was a systems analyst at San Francisco State University. BPI identified him as a telepath. In other words, he had the ability to read your energy and know things that were just amazing. Like I witnessed him tell a woman who was pregnant at the time that she was going to have twins, a boy and a girl. Now, what's the likelihood of him knowing that? Okay, so anyway, I began studies at BPI in Berkeley and in the 70s, began channeling a very precise mudra art form, attended parapsychology studies at Stanford with BPI and graduated in 1980. Witnessed how many levels people are allowed to see in order to heal themselves. Religious beliefs and their dictums became paramount. Limiting abilities without regard of etymology, or words' origin, meaning, and change, or ontology, the metaphysics of the nature and of being, and epistemology, the scope or the justification of beliefs and opinions. So these things really meant a lot to me, just getting through decolonizing myself. Began seeing clients from all walks of life, students, doctors, lawyers, social workers, and world-renowned artists. A client introduces me to her Qigong master from China. She tells me I am gifted with the art of Qigong, says it predates acupressure. Resigned working as a lab tech in a psychiatric institution, left allopathic training, pre-med lab work in bacteriology and physiology, sustains inner working and the metaphor of the outer working of the world. Asked to become an investigative news reporter after lab psych tech resignation, I interviewed Kwame Ture, AKA Stokely Carmichael, along with Jesse Jackson, Frank Oz, and Jim Henson of the Muppets. So I had a range there, but fascinating. And Jim Henson would put out this movie called The Dark Crystal, which had a book that was 100 pages or so, but it had metaphysical symbols in it that I really wanted to purchase at the time, or at least have, but I couldn't. Black bookstores like Marcus Books and in San Francisco and Oakland, or my Solitude Books in Philadelphia, where Shirley Chisholm, oh, I just skipped a part. Oh, I would write poetic musings about the patriarch and matriarch as I was in the midst of becoming actually a news reporter. And that's where Shirley Chisholm would purchase a poem in Philadelphia that I had written called Be Strong, My Sister. And poetry was picked up by the newspaper, and from there, California poets in the schools saw me at Golden Gate Park's Arts Festival, and the rest is history with 70 anthologies I've published for at-risk youth, because I know something about being at risk and overcoming those things. Having to tell children, you know, you can get through this. So with that little bit, I'm going to read. And how many minutes do I have about?
You have a total of 15, including what you already did, so.
Oh, okay, great. Okay. So I'm going to read some things. People look at me and think, oh, she just had a wonderful life. You know, look, she looks healthy and all of that, but they don't know what had actually taken place. So Shizue published in the book Civil Liberties, and sorry, I'm just jumping around here a bit, a piece that I experienced in San Francisco called Judgment, the Tracking System. So I'll begin with that, and then I'll go into some.
Tureeda, you might only have time for that one. I noticed that we're getting a little short.
Oh, well, that's why I was asking.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I asked. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, because I was going to do this one. I thought I had timed it to do this one and the piece regarding the Black Panthers.
You have 5 minutes is what I looked at.
Okay, thank you, Ravi.
Okay, so what I'll do is the Panthers piece, because I think that relates to what we're going through right now, and you've heard enough about what I went through.
Yeah, great.
Life Light Remembered, and it's in the book. We are soldiers in the battlefield with life light in our eyes, said Sister Sonia. 1994, 23 years after volunteering at the George Jackson Free Health Clinic, the Tribune calls, ask, How many guns did you have at the Black Panther clinic? How many guns? Not how many services were provided, not how many programs were implemented, not how many doctors or healthcare workers volunteered, not even why we care to put into practice such a program with so many hospitals in our community. No, didn't ask any of that. Wanted to know how many guns we had, not how many illnesses or diseases most affected our communities, or how often we screened for diabetes, sickle cell, or checked for high blood pressure, if at all, or what may have been my specialty at the time. I would have told them about certain grains to regain genetic memory, but they were more interested in how many guns we had, not who ran the clinic, or what hours or days of the week we were open, or who was our hero or shero to set about such a task that sustains our health needs today. No, the reporter didn't ask any of that. They wanted to know how many guns we had. Black men and women, late teens to 20-somethings volunteered to become doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and therapists, completed homework between seeing patients. Black volunteer staff, physicians, Dr. Talbert Smalls and Eddie Newsom developed methadone programs to destroy heroin addictions, reverse curse of opioid addictions, purposely placed in our Black communities to weaken the Black power base. We took vital signs, provided prenatal care, kept patient records, organized charts, med rooms, pharmacies, gave better care than Kaiser dared, held life light in our eyes. Books are bullets, educationally armed our right to fight through walls that imprisoned us as violent, drug-infested, gun-carrying, sex-crazed jigaboos. Kwame Ture warned, education in this country makes you stupid, but what is worse, it makes you arrogant in your stupidity. The revolution is coming, whether you want it or not, it is coming. The revolution will not be televised, not be televised, not be televised. The revolution will be live. How many guns did we have? We were soldiers on the battlefield with life light in our eyes. We are soldiers on the battlefield with life light in our eyes.
Thank you so much, Tureeda. And that's just a tiny sliver of who she is. She's also a fantastic storyteller. She's a wonderful poet. She is an amazing spirit. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. And next is Dr. Ravi Chandra.
All right, thank you, Shiz. Wow, I am just so moved by what I've heard today. And I know I've known Shiz for a long time, and she's such an activist and such a organizer, trying to bring out the best in people through her anthologies. And Tureeda, my first time meeting you, and I'm just so impressed by your spirit that you've found what works for you as in a healing way, and you brought it to the world in 70 anthologies. My God. So I'm just honored and blessed to be with you. I want to start with the words of, let me set my timer. Okay, I want to start with the words of our prophet, Bob Marley. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Now that is true. So we are all in this process of emancipating ourselves, and hopefully we can help ourselves become more free and more who we are deep inside. Because I feel I'm not free yet myself, although I'm struggling. And I'll tell you a little bit about the struggle that I've had most recently. I think I try to bring myself to my work and my life with as much compassion and empathy as I have. And the period of COVID has been difficult, right? And we're on Zoom doing my work, and I've certainly felt that mask is love. That mask is the love I carry for myself and for other people. in caring for them. And that's kind of the driving principle of my life, is how can I care for myself and care for others at the same time, and how to hold that, because that's community. That's the beloved community that I hope we can create eventually. Now, but this process of being on Zoom, it kind of tenderized me, made me feel how important our people sense is, our sense of connection. And it's not quite perfect on Zoom. I hate to tell you, it's good enough. And we may need to continue to preserve our health, but it's not enough. We need people-to-people contact. We need face-to-face contact to retain our social beings. And when we feel disconnected, we suffer. And the opposite of suffering is belonging. So trying to create that sense of belonging is a great task of freedom. Okay, so so then the murder of George Floyd happened, and it was like a bomb. It was just to watch a man lose his life in 8 minutes and 46 seconds in such a violent criminal way, and you could just see what a gentle man he was. That's all you needed to know is he was just a man who was there's a saying in Zen, do not take offense even if it is offered. And you could see how he was taking this offense in just the only way he could as a human being. And I was just very moved by that, and by the fact that he called for his mother at the very end. This opened up a space of just deep caring and compassion and love, so I wrote some poetry based on that. But so when you bring compassion to a wound, and you try to cultivate compassion for all of the issues that you see before you, the racism, the sexism, homophobia, when you bring compassion to a wound, you get backdraft. Because when you touch that beautiful light of compassion to a wounded space, the structure kind of rebels. All your own resistances and the resistances in the architecture of the world's mind, so to speak, become kind of manifest, and it pushes back. And I'm not saying it's kind of it's not it's not, well, it can feel very malevolent in a way, but it's that, I think that's the way I feel it. It's like that compassion came in a very big way to me, and I felt the love of compassion. And then there's backdraft, and backdraft can take many forms: tightness in the mind, an ache in the chest, even for me, just hearing voices. It became that unglued in a sense. And I'm trying to bring myself back, because I know that the collective unconscious has biases too, and this psyche of the world has longings and biases. But I know the fundamental concept of love is uniting, and not everything loves love, so to speak, because where does love take us? So this is something I'm trying to find out in my own life, to cultivate that spirit of love and compassion and deal with the backdraft that comes up. So what I have, and I'm not hearing those voices anymore, by the way. I mean, because I know it's a product of my own mind, but this is, I think, an important insight that I'll have to work through to understand how this may be happening to other people as a psychiatrist. But I think it happens because that compassion opens up the split in the world psyche. Whether it's racism, there's a split between white and black, brown and yellow and red, and all of this split. But only love can heal this. It cannot be managed away. And the other split, I feel, is this idea that we're running through, we're building this technology, and there's kind of a split between, is it about technology or people? Now, I don't think it's either or. I think technology can be about people and support people and sustain people. I think that's a possibility, but we have to, as people, be really careful about how we use technology and how we shape it so it serves people's interests, and we can still be our full selves. Because technology, if we get too into it, it can distort our people sense. And I think that's what's most important, is our people sense, our social beings. We are interdependent creatures. We are, as the Ubuntu proverb says, people become people through other people. And as I say in my book, Face Buddha, we are who happens to us and what we make of the happening. So that's what I believe. So that's people sense based on love. It's our relationships are based on love, ultimately, how we care about each other, the love between mother and father and child. And some of us have been broken from that very first embryo that we are in, that nucleus, that family, and that's a wound that becomes a split. And that's what we have to heal within ourselves as well. Find our new families, whatever we need to do to become people through other people. And that's why all of you are important in your own way. Every single human being is special and important and valued. And to become yourself is to be the love that you are to navigate life. And so I think we can work these splits if we remember and return to love. That's what I want to say. This is what I'm trying to do, is to navigate these psychological splits in my own mind as they come up, and to be love. And I think that's, for me, a soft power kind of love, which is at times to be as gentle as possible when I face the split, but to say the words that need to be said as necessary. Because I think soft power, whether it's film, poetry, arts, culture, is so powerful to influence each other's minds. So poetry comes from this beautiful space. Yeah. And so I'm going to read a couple of poems that hopefully come from that place that I've been talking about. This one is called Mud Fire, and I wrote it in this space that I've been traveling. No mud, no lotus. This is about, Thich Nhat Hanh has a phrase, no mud, no lotus. We have to have suffering to become enlightened. Mud fire. No mud, no lotus, no mud, no lotus, no mud, no lotus, no, 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 mud, 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 death, 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 anguish, anger, agony, defeated, deprived, blaming, blamed, fury, dead, race, race, racism. I am black. I am not black. I am Asian. I am not Asian enough. I love. Is my loving enough? I have never been good enough. It seems the world is just hard and I am alone. I am alone. I am alone with my thoughts, alone with my wounds, the flames of my wounds licking, alone with remembering, remembering, remembering in the night, rejection, snap, revenge, snap, murderous rage. I murder them all in my mind, Odysseus comes home to kill. I am always arriving home. Home. Is this home? Is this mind home? In my mind, Penelope has not been true. I have not been true. Mud-filled fury, filled grief, sparks, flames, loss. I am a pillar of fire, not remembering any lovers, not remembering any who have loved me enough, who have loved me well enough, not remembering any lotus, just remembering those who didn't love, who told me they couldn't love because of this brown skin, who didn't return kindness, who just moved on. I was not significant enough to care about. Mud, why remember just this mud? I need repair. I need someone to know this mud I've carried that weighs me down. A woman, I want a woman to know, a lover. This is too specific an ask, too selfish an ask. Who has that? Who has a lover, a knower? Who has a Penelope anyway, waiting for them, true or untrue, or ready to be true? Murder is a specific loss of love. So I have been murdered, haven't I? I have been killed. I might as well finish the job. That's why the fire burns. I am seeking love from my murderers. This is the insanity of mud. My murderers have been murdered too. They are ghosts. I didn't see that. I didn't see the world murdering them. Thought my love was enough, but they were already dead, being murdered, lungs filled with mud. We are all drowning in mud and death and loss, and we can't breathe. I can't breathe. All the black dead, specifically unloved, in the end specifically murdered by specific lack of love. Am I mud for them? Have I been mud? Are all our names mud to them? The names we now love, all the names we now love, now mourn, all the names, have we been mud to them? All the names now dead with just one specific ask, that quiet voice pleading, please love me, please love me, please love me, please. Please love me, mama. Please love me, mama. Mama, mama, please love me into lotus and all the ways we say no, 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 no. So thank you. I'll just read that one. All right. I think I'm a little ahead of time, but yeah. So feelings come up, and they have their own form, and I'm also trying to process my feelings and put them into my words and into my work. This is quite a task. So I wish you luck with healing yourself through the spirit of your heart and mind.
Ravi Chandra, psychiatrist and writer. And as some of you know, mental health is a pretty big issue in the Asian American community, and there's a lot of stigma around it. And we're lucky to have people like Ravi who can bring the experience of being Asian, but not Asian enough, maybe, to the things that the stresses that we experience. Anyway, the last presenter is Kalechi Ubozo. She's Nigerian American. She's a mental health advocate and the editor of a book that I hope you'll tell us about, right? Are you going to say a little bit about your wonderful book? We've been too patient. Anyway, this is Kalechi Ubozo.
Thank you so much for having me on and inviting us. And wow, it's really hard to go after that, especially when you're crying, but that's okay. We're supposed to be feeling in humans. So I'm a level set with you. That was so powerful. And hearing from Tureeda and you, Shizue, too, has been really powerful. So I want to be that person who is mindful of time. What I really want to do today, and if we have time, I'll share a little snippet of a poem, but I want to talk about what's been happening in the Black community, and allyship, and a little bit about mental health. This is, we're going to not call it what the month is, but we're going to say it is People of Color Month, Mental Health Month. And it's really important that we talk about mental health. Mental health has a lot of stigma about it. There's a lot of judgment, and it impacts all of us. It's health. It's not someone has mental health and someone doesn't, or someone's broken and or someone isn't. And so really the book that Shizue brought up, who is in the book and wrote an essay in it, We've Been Too Patient, is a collection of stories from people who are considered patients, who've received a diagnosis but don't identify with that diagnosis, have their own expression. We all do, and I'm one of those people. So I'm going to talk about a lot of things, but really one of the things that I personally have been struggling with during this time is the absence of the conversation about Breonna Taylor. A lot of times when we think about the ongoing violence in the Black community, we really are frequently talking about George Floyd, and it is not to compare deaths. It's just to really acknowledge that there's been an erasure of a Black woman, and the erasing of Black women is really, really something that touches me deeply as a Black woman. Shizue mentioned I'm Nigerian American, so my dad is Nigerian, my mom is Brooklyn. That's a whole culture in itself. But I want to tell you a little bit what I've been up to recently. So what I want to say is that the ongoing violence in our communities totally impacts our mental health. And it is not just the images of police brutality or the fear that you've always had every day that any moment could be the day. When I'm driving, I get really scared. If I get pulled over, what will happen? It's a constant fear. It didn't start in June. It started when I started driving at 16. This is a long-standing issue. But I think what's recently bubbling up in the collective, or the Black collective in terms of mental health, is the discourse that we're having about our lives. The fact that someone could sit at home at their family table and talk about whether I should be alive or not is absolutely ludicrous. The fact that this conversation in some ways is even happening, and we're debating if I could be alive or not, or collectively I should be, or, well, it should be this way or that hits really hard on mental health. The other thing that's been happening is the revelation that some people that I have had, that many people have had deep connected relationships with, have not yet done their work on anti-racism, and it hasn't come up until now. So what a lot of people are experiencing are conversations or assumptions we've made, or we've labeled people allies. We've talked a little bit more about that later. And then when we're having that discourse, learning a little bit more that a lot of folks have work to do. I'm someone who has work to do too. We all have work to do. That is the collective conversation. So let me be clear, the Black community is not a monolithic community. We have different experiences, intersectionalities, identities, affiliations. However, collectively, we are facing generational trauma. So what I've been up to lately is I've been honored to facilitate healing sessions for the Black community. And what I'm learning more about is Black identity, and the fact that so many people don't feel like we're Black enough, that we're witnessing people wake up, and that is both cautiously optimistic and painful to watch someone wake up to, oh, racism is real. When you're older, when you're even in your teens, when you're in your 60s, wherever you are in life, watching other people awaken can be really harmful. And it's a really important process as well. We're also trying to navigate work, microaggressions, and then the more that we're learning about what white supremacy means, and not that it means, you know, covert and overt, not that it means what we thought it meant, right? Like, I think a lot of people hear the word white supremacy, it's very a popular topic right now, but they think about lynchings and they think about the KKK. They're not thinking about words like I'm colorblind. They're not thinking about coded white supremacy. They're not thinking about we're all just humans. These words that have different meanings that are really harmful. And the more that Black people and communities of color learn about what this means, we start to take, many of us can start to take toll of, oh my gosh, wait, that experience that I thought felt weird in my gut, oh, that was problematic. And people are remembering things from elementary school, from high school, from every workplace they've ever been to. So I think there's this collective learning what it is and then trying to unlearn what we've been programmed to believe, which is essentially a longer conversation that I wish I could have with all of you. But I want to say that navigating work and all of these things, and also meanwhile, navigating something that we've been talking about in our community around performative justice. So watching all of these people suddenly show up and being really concerned or confused, like, do you mean it? Do you value my life? And then having to navigate, well, they were silent. Do they not value it? Or they're saying something, but is it true? It's this constant flow of who's safe, who's not safe. So I just want to say that this impacts our mental health, right? You don't diagnose racism as a mental health issue, but racism impacts our mental health. And this awakening, this uncovering, these dialogues, this conversation largely is exhausting. So I just want to say that this is some of the conversation that I'm having, that I'm impacted by, my community. And again, that's some of the barriers. But I want to say the beautiful part of this work is that we get to see each other. And I'm leading conversations finally where people are like, oh, I guess mental health is worth discussing. Maybe it's not so inaccessible. And if we could unpack mental health as connectivity and healing as opposed to something very scary, then I think we can really embrace it in a different way. So Shiz asked if I could talk a little bit about the book, We've Been Too Patient, and definitely check it out. There's a lot of conversation in there, but what I wanted to say is that I talk a lot, and everyone talks a lot about the biomedical model. What is this biomedical model of mental illness and why is it problematic? So I'll share a story with you. When I first moved to California, and that was 8 years ago now, I attended a peer-run conference, and the director at the time was telling this very sobering story of the dangers of the biomedical model in mental illness. He shared that a couple years back, clinical researchers had traveled to conduct research with a nomadic tribe in Africa. One member of the tribe had experienced altered states. He heard voices, he had hallucinations, and his community widely accepted him as having spiritual gifts. However, the clinicians diagnosed him with schizophrenia and told the tribe leaders that he was sick and needed treatment. When the researchers caught up with the tribe months later, they noticed that the gentleman they had diagnosed was gone. When they asked where he was, the tribe leader said, well, you told us he was sick. We're a nomadic tribe, and in our culture, if someone is sick, they'll slow us down and we must leave them behind. So they left him. I just have to say that they left him. This was a person who was accepted in their community and then received help and now was left to die because of some Western ideas of illness and health. I will never forget that story. The biomedical model says that mental illness is a disease of the brain due to chemical imbalances or even a genetic predetermination. And if we ascribe suffering as a biomedical explanation, we miss the environmental factors, we miss trauma, we miss race, we miss racism, we miss oppression. It does not account for any of this. We don't talk about spirituality, identity. The biomedical model assesses the condition and focuses more on treating an illness and modifying brain chemistry than thinking about health. The treatment of illness is emphasized over health because the belief is that health is the absence of disease. And this is problematic because if you're treating an illness, you're not working with a person and you're not integrating that person in their care. So what our book speaks to is recovery-oriented solutions that promote mutual aid, well-being of people of color, queer, trans folks, and other marginalized communities. Radical mental health, which I don't think should be that radical, encourage individuals to reach their own understanding of their experience and explore what works for them. If medication works for you, that's wonderful. If you need to talk more about spirituality, that's great. But it has to be person-centered and person-first. So I share that with you because as mental health is becoming a popular conversation to have, we need to talk about what the biomedical model that we're under impacts as well. I'm going to say a couple of words about allyship. It's amazing how fast this time goes. So I am not the expert on allyship. I am not a D&I expert. I am a human trying to do my part. But what I will say in my current experience is that allyship is not a verb. No, allyship is not an identity. It's a verb. So I am not an ally. I cannot assign myself as an ally. It is not something that, oh, I'm an ally. There, I did it. I read a couple of books and now I woke up. So what I want to say is that it is not comfortable. It is actions. It's a process. And what it doesn't look like making mistakes, being afraid of making mistakes. A lot of us are so afraid to say the wrong thing that we don't do anything, right? It doesn't mean that you minimize your privilege just because you've experienced other forms of oppression. So it doesn't mean that you're appropriating Black culture to distance yourself. What I would say allyship looks like is working with other people you trust to do this work alongside of you. It means not sensationalizing the murder of Black people. It means not reaching out to Black acquaintances or colleagues during times of trauma to seek input or validation. I wish I could tell you how many times people have reached out to me to just double check that they're a good person. This is violent. This is not what allyship looks like. It is a deep interpersonal, personal work that everyone can do. And I work on allyship in different communities that I'm not a part of. And I make mistakes. I mess up. Oh my goodness. What it looks like is listening and believing the experiences of Black people. I say listening and believing. Do not say, are you sure that's what happened to you? Well, maybe you just were sensitive that day. Believe people. It means learning that the experience of colonization might lead to this paternalism, like need to protect or urgency. People want to move fast to fix it, like it's a check that you're gonna, oh, I did it. No. It means recognizing forms of oppression, like avoidance, exclusion, rejection, and violence. Practicing humility. A big one that I've seen interrupted a lot is respecting spaces reserved by Black people and people of color. Not every space is your space. I've definitely seen well-intentioned people show up in spaces they're not supposed to be in because they want to help. That's okay. There's a space for you. This is not yours. And then also learning what your own privilege looks like and unpacking that. So I want to leave those things here for you. I have about a couple minutes left to talk about self-care. So I want to just say a couple of things about self-care super quickly. Your mental health is vital. Everyone's mental health is vital. Self-care for me is a full-time job. I am a survivor of many things. And so it doesn't mean for me taking a bubble bath, though I do love bubble baths. It really means asking a set of questions, which usually starts with, is this going to be helpful to my mental health or harmful? I'm definitely someone who's been programmed to believe what other people think and need are above my own health. So I have to take this so seriously. Reaching out to trustworthy people who can hold space for you as part of my mental health practice. Not everyone can be supportive. A lot of us are doing our own work. So it's not a judgment. If you're around someone who is draining you, you have to protect your energy, especially in times when we are going through a collective trauma and generational trauma. And that's okay. connecting with things that bring you joy or energy. You have to connect with joy. Oh my goodness. When my friends ask how they can help me, I say, send me pictures of your babies, because your babies didn't do anything to me. I want pictures of babies laughing. I need to connect with joy, because love and joy is radical self-care. Ask yourself what you need right now and then advocate for it. Do you need a break? Do you need to talk more about these things? Do you need to check out? Understand what you need and then make sure you communicate it. Revisit your own coping skills and remove those that no longer serve you. One of mine is staying so busy with projects that I avoid my own feelings. How's that working out? Not so great. Allow yourself to feel emotions and attend to your physical needs. We have to release. If you're angry, it's okay. You can feel it. Don't stuff stuff down. It's going to come back out. I'll tell you. It might not come out in the way you want it to either. You can transform feelings of hopelessness to advocacy. That's what these spaces are for, right? So, so important to think about advocacy. And advocacy for everyone is not protesting. It could be facilitating space. It could be signing petitions. It could be working on your own stuff, right? We need all of you. And last but not least, creating boundaries. No is a complete sentence. And I know it's hard to say it. You can say no. Am I doing something because I feel obligated, guilty, or pressured? Do I need to even have this conversation right now? Do I need a break from social media? Let me tell you, my Instagram is canceled for now, right? But you can have different boundaries that are specific for you and your mental health to protect your energy so you can keep doing this really important work. Do not forget to rest and breathe and drink water and connect with beautiful things and beautiful humans that give you energy, because we need all of you. We need every single person. So I think that's my time, but I just wanted to share those thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelechi. So beautifully said. We all needed to hear that. So thank you to all of the presenters. You were all wonderful. And now this is time for you, the audience. And I'm going to ask you to be honest with yourselves, to get out of your heads and write from your heart, write honestly from personal experience. Let me interrupt myself right now because I need to check. Rachel, were you supposed to do something here? I uploaded.
We
Yes.
wanted to share some, I think,
Yes.
extra notes that Rachel did prepare, and then
Exactly.
I will also share the text instructions, if it's okay.
Okay, great. Sorry about that.
Okay. So before we get into the writing exercise, I would just like to say thank you for your comments, everybody, for being engaged. It was amazing. And then a quick little Zoom tip is, if you're muted and you want to temporarily unmute yourself really quick just to say something, you can hit the space bar and hold down the space bar while you talk. So I'll do it right now just to show you guys. So I'm gonna mute myself. And then now I'm holding down the space bar. It's kind of like a walkie-talkie. You just hold it down for the duration you're talking. And then when you're done, you just take your finger off the space bar. And then we're going to, let's see, I'm posting in the chat box now a Google folder for people to submit their works if they don't want to read them out loud. And Shizue will talk about that a little bit more, but this is just for now. Is there anything else? Just encouraging more use of the chat box. Keep up the good work. All right, thank you.
Okay, so Kemi, can you stop sharing the screen for a little bit while I talk, and we'll put it back on. We'll put the instructions up later, but I like to see people when I talk. I like to feel like I'm talking to human beings. So we'll put up the Google Drive folder and the prompts that I'm going to talk about after I'm done, once the free write starts. We sort of ran over time a little bit, so I think I'm going to cut the free write time to 15 minutes. And what I really want to do, I know that some of you are just here because you're taking a class, but what I want to do is to offer that we stay engaged in dialogue, whether you're in class or not. I have an organization called Right Now SF Bay. It meets once a month. You can look up the website, rightnowsfbay.com. We meet at least once a month, and we also do other kinds of writing exchanges. The idea is to give people of color a voice. And, one of my particular griefs is that Asian Americans find it so hard to speak up. There's so many challenges, and it's so scary for a lot of different reasons. I mean, I couldn't think about trying to publish my memoir until my parents died. I knew they would just not like it. But we have to show ourselves. And if we don't, we will continue to be erased. We will continue to suffer the consequences of that, as Ravi and Kelechi talked about. We matter. Our voices matter. What we think matters. And we need each other's stories, because there is so much diversity in the Asian American community, just like in the Black community. There's so many of us with so many stories, so many perspectives, and without a lot of safe places to share those things without judgment. So that's the reason that I did this workshop, and I'd like to keep continuing to do them. So for this write, stay out of your head, stay out of ideas, write from your heart, write honestly from personal experience. Be respectful of others, but write what's true for you. I mean, a lot of us our heads got filled up with all kinds of installed racism and other things. And, we need to work through that stuff as well. So write what's true for you without judgment about where you're at right now and what you are learning or unlearning. You can work from these prompts that'll be up on the screen in a minute, or write from what's on top for you, because I'm sure that all of these powerful presenters have brought up material for you. If we would love for you to share afterwards, but if you're shy about sharing, then post your write, upload your write to the Google Drive folder that we're going to put up, and be sure and put your contact info on it, because we will not share it without your permission. Let's see. So, when we share afterwards, we probably won't be able to share more than a few minutes a piece anyway. So we would love for you to upload the whole piece in the Google folders. So some possible places to start. What are you thinking and feeling right now? What past experiences have been brought up for you? How have you been impacted by rising anti-Black and anti-racism? How has that hit you? Have you personally experienced or witnessed racism? As we've talked about, a lot of us have been carefully taught not to see it, to excuse it, to blame ourselves. So it's a topic worth exploring. How has racism come at you? What was your response? How will you respond differently today? What family or social pressures are suppressing or supporting your experiences around race. So there's a lot there. That's just a place to start. We're going to start the timer for 15 minutes, and Akemi will put the prompts on screen, and the Google Drive will go up on.
Yes.
If you want to share afterwards, put your name in the chat so that we'll know that you want to share.
Thank you, Shizue.
Okay, so okay, go ahead.
All right, and just quick note, I've shared it, and I'm also gonna just go ahead and put these into the chat in case the chat is an easier medium for folks. But I do have the timer with me, and we are going to begin this, and I will only chime in to give time reminders, but we're going to be keeping this time pretty quiet, right? So don't worry, nothing's frozen, we're still here, but this is your time now. And time starts. So if you were really inspired, and if you also want to specifically reach out to any of the presenters today, I think between either OACC side or reaching out to Right Now SF, Shizue, I think arrangements can be made to continue dialogue that way.
Mm-hmm.
Shizue, did you have any final words?
I'm doing another anthology in the spring, and I want to get as many voices and as many perspectives as I can. I think that nobody needs to apologize about their grammar, their language, their perspectives. It's all part of who we all are. We're all connected. There's this incredible richness in who we are. And, if the mainstream wants to try to throttle that and it's their loss, and we need to keep on going and keep on being connected.
Yeah, Shizue, I just want to bring up that I have a fantastic bunch of students, and we're just getting started towards the beginning of the semester, and they'll be turning in more reflection pieces, and so we can look at it and get more comments. The other thing is the students at all across the United States, especially international students from China, are under a lot of pressure right now. Yeah. Because the federal administration wants to deport all those who are taking online classes only. So that's like another big fight that's going on. And I think one of the students started a campaign drive, a letter writing campaign to protest that. So this idea of resistance, many different levels of resistance is important. The writing part, the protests, and campaigns. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Harvey, will you share that information with this group if you can, or in another email? I would love to send a letter and support.
Yeah, because previously I had a lot of international students, and they were concerned about this, mm-hmm. and then now it's actually hit, and a lot of this is connected with the anti-China xenophobia stuff, and then with that you get more racism, people getting attacked or spit upon, on the street. You hear a lot of incidents like that, but it's all filters down from the top.
And Kelechi, with your biomedical, I am looking at a few poems in the book that speaks to just relating to the biomedical or the hegemony of what we're going through as we learn how to take care of ourselves or come out of these issues that we find ourselves steeped in, because this culture allows only their way of seeing and relating to healing. And so if you Well, there's just a couple of pieces. One is called Eyes So Bright. I would see this young man walking around, looking up in the sky. And when he ended up on my job at the lock ward side, anyway, I'm trying to rush through because I feel people trying to get me off, but I'm trying to share some things that you would possibly be able to use in the book. Eyes So Bright, Take Me Home, Mama, where electroshock treatment is still being used. And we have to be aware of that and how it is disregarding health issues mentally according to who we are as a people. We don't all think alike. We don't have experiences that are alike. And so that has to be understood. And over 30 years of research, I put into this book and other stories that are coming out that are, yes, that would be very helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
Can
I chime in a little bit? Or
give the students a chance if anybody else wants to speak up. And I'm also, I see that there are students that are not Asian American that are taking this class. Golsa, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. And let's see, there's somebody else, Latina name I saw. But anyway, do any of you have any things you want to share?
I think Ravi was about to say something.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in this process of cultivating our connection and belonging with each other, we have to find all these ways that we've been talking about of staying creative and connected to our hearts. And because I think there's always going to be obstacles that we encounter that can twist our minds and our intention to thinking about friends and enemies, and kind of we can plant our energy around opposing this or that, and we can't even name that force, but it's part of our human psychology, and I think it's something that we have to try to let go of. I've been through phases in the past of getting too caught up in a blame game, or just being frustrated and angry, and frustration can be good because it can help us build our resilience. But I think that it's also good not to harden the frustrations into a hostility, because that takes away from the messages of the heart and the messages of community and belonging. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. I am seeing that we are quite over time. Shizue, did you have final instructions or things that you would like to convey?
No, I thank you all for coming, and I feel really grateful to all the presenters. So
Thank you
very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for hanging on for our extra 20 minutes. Thank you one final time to all of our presenters, everyone who participated, everyone who shared in this space. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you again.
Thanks to everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Being here.